This is a lesson on rhythm durations, that is how long you're going to hold on to a given rhythm in 4/4 time. We are focusing on 4/4 time because it is the most common time signature and you need to understand how all these rhythmic values will fit into the most common time signature. In 4/4 time, this means 4 quarter notes are happening per measure. So we're going to focus on our friend, the quarter note. So as I count to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, every quarter note gets one click of the beat or one snap as you heard. And I can double check this with my rhythm tree. If you haven't spent any time studying this rhythm tree, now is a great time to pull this up and look over it. Every measure in 4/4 time indeed has 4 quarter notes and the equivalent of 4 quarter rests. And I can track that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every quarter note gets one snap. So as I come back here, I'm going to make a note of this and just say 1. If I come up to my half note, half notes occur every other quarter note, so they're twice as slow. I have a 1, 2, 3, 4. So each half note gets 2 counts, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Or we could say that each half note here takes up the same amount of time as 2 quarter notes. 2 quarter notes equals 1 half note. So we're going to give this a 2. 1 quarter note will fit into the same amount of time as 1 quarter note. 2 quarter notes will fit into the same amount of time as a half note. Let's move up to our whole note. We will review our basic rhythm tree. And we have our whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can see that we have 4 quarter notes fit into the same amount of time as 1 whole note. So we're going to give this a 4. We have 4 clicks here. 2 clicks, and clicks being the quarter note. And 1 quarter note fits into the same amount of time as 1 quarter note. Things get a little tricky when we move the other way. We have our eighth note. And eighth notes take half the amount of time as a quarter note. We can review our tree. And here we have an eighth note, and as we move on to the next eighth note, they each take up half the amount of time as 1 quarter note. And we can see here when we have 2 eighth notes, that's half plus half, will take the same amount of time as a quarter note. So on this chart, we are going to give this 1/2 the time. And as we move down to the 16th notes, 16th notes are half of the 8th note, therefore they are a quarter of the amount of time as a quarter note. So, just to put that in writing, 0.25, 1/4 of the time as a quarter note. Don't let that confuse you. This is not a quarter note. This just takes the quarter amount of time as a quarter note. That's not confusing at all. And we can double check that here. We have our quarter note, and we can see that 4 16th notes take up the same amount of time as 1 quarter note. Therefore, 1 16th note is 1/4 of the time as a quarter note. Don't let that confuse you. If you need anything to brush up on, study these numbers. 1 quarter note fits into 1. 8th note takes half the amount of time. And the 16th notes will take up a quarter amount of time based on the quarter note. Over here we have our dotted variations. And this is just to add a little extra confusion. I did not come up with this. This is just the way things are right now. When we have a dot, we take a rhythm value plus half. So we have a quarter note here. Dot equals to add half add half the value. Well, what's half the value of a quarter note? Is the eighth note. So this is equal to 1.5, 1.5 beats. If we come up here, our rhythmic value is the half note, which is equal to 2. And what is half of the half note? Our quarter note. So this is 2 plus 1. So this is going to give us a rhythmic value of 3. And we can take any other of these values and add dots to them. Let's not do that today. These are the numbers that you will need to know and how long they would last in comparison to the quarter note. We can take a line of music down here and let's just slap up some rhythms. We have to establish our time signature. Notice that automatically gave me hold rest. That'll take up 4 counts. If you are not familiar with what the rest variations of each of these rhythms are, I highly recommend that you look at the chart. 8th note has 1 blip, 16th rest has 2 blips. So let's toss up some rhythms here. Quarter, 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 and checks out that we have 4 quarter notes per measure. Each of these is going to get 1 click of the beat. We can do a quarter, 2/8, and let's put in a half note, and everything looks fine. 1 quarter note. Our next beat has 2 halves, so that equals our next beat, and our half note takes up the rest of the counts. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Notice that I'm keeping to fairly basic rhythms. Let's try putting in a quarter note. And now we are going to tie what happened there? We have our quarter note, and we are going to tie in an 8th note. So quarter note tied to an 8th note. Ties act like plus signs, so this is going to combine it into a dotted quarter. And it did that automatically. We can put a half note in, and we can tie a quarter note to it, half the value. And it's automatically going to convert that to a dotted half note. This takes up 3 of our 4 counts, and we are left with 1 quarter rest at the end. So hopefully this clears up some of the confusion on how long notes last. If anything, study this line here. I'll put up a PDF and let me know if you have any questions.